Alright, we have a couple packages, one of which was already open, but, you know, that's because One Piece was in it. So, spoiler alert, One Piece is one of the things that arrived for this week's update, and was one of the things I watched. Because, of course, my Friday friend really likes it. Highly prioritizes it. And I'll talk about that a bit more when we get there, but for now, we gotta get in here and get this. Why do I keep forgetting the name? What's in here? Let's see, we actually have a receipt there, which if I move aside, it's not actually a receipt, but interesting. Interesting Right Stuff additionals. I believe that's correct. Yes. And we got these two packages, which have not been opened yet. And we'll just, you know, get them started like that. And I'd put that scissor away quicker if I didn't accidentally put it through the handle of another scissor. Let's see. Yeah. Interesting. I think I went back and forth with these enough that I got them mixed up. Ooh. Very nice. And then, last but not least, these three things. Which, you know, we'll begin with the one at the top, which is One Piece Season 11 Voyage 3. And for those of you who think, wow, Season 11, that's pretty high, well, it's probably technically higher because I think this is Season 11 by US standards, and I'm pretty sure what we called Seasons 1 and 2 were actually multiple seasons. Now, Season 1 could have still been Season 1, but I would actually suspect that Season 2, which was ridiculously long, was probably a combination of multiple seasons, just because everything else on One Piece has been that way. So you've got Disc 1, Disc 2, you know, DVD Blu-ray versions. And then Gleipnir. Gleipnir? Let's see if there's any sexy, ominous, dark, foreboding cloud. It's definitely a better image overall. So not different underneath. Okay, complete season. All the edge plus lots of fluff. So I take it this is probably, I mean, it's saying edge, so it probably means that there's like kind of violence-y sort of stuff, but fluffy. I don't know. Reminds me of Silent Hill. Regions A and B, so could be imported. English dub. And red text that I'm having trouble reading under certain angles. A dark and thrilling new series co-produced by Funimation. Yeah, it's got Japanese, so it's co-produced. That doesn't mean it's only Funimation created. You know, that's one of those tricky things where something could be animated in good and not necessarily be Japan-oriented, which would mean that it doesn't fall under the most of the useful definitions for the word anime that I'm aware of. But I don't know. At some point, I had to find something that I would draw the line at. What do I get? Shironeko Project Zero Chronicle. The complete series. And I can't read that because that's Japanese. Okay. It's time to look for some sexy flowers underneath the sticker. I guess there was some back there. Now what everything else in here even is, I don't know. Within darkness there is light. Regions A and B, there's an English dub. Oh, nice. It says that, but that's kind of the other way around. Within light there's darkness. Well, and a different back as well. Same character or not? Interesting. nice. It's actually a pretty interesting release. I mean, I don't know about the contents of the show itself, but like the DVD and its presentation and this plastic deciding it doesn't want to come off. I noticed part of the problem is that we got plastic sticking to the side, which, you know, happens every once in a while. The thing that worries me about it is the name sounds familiar somewhat. Okay, looks like that's a girl of light and a guy of dark. It's got some really interesting imagery. So we got the guy of dark on the inside. This one's an interesting curiosity. I'll have to make sure I didn't get anything else named Shironeko Project that was maybe like a precursor to this, but I don't think this is a season 2. It doesn't seem to be saying it's a season 2. Could be it's just that some of the naming's kind of reminiscent of other character names. Anyways, 7 of 7, aka Shinichi no Nana. This is a Blu-ray Complete Collection, and this is a neat little series. Not necessarily like mind-bogglingly good, but my experience with it was that it was just kind of fun to watch. And it was enjoyable, and I guess it's kind of weird because, you know, they're going here with, you can see underneath her dress there where you can see a little bit of bra, and, you know, back here you see the sexy Nana with a little curvature to her, and you would almost think that this is a little more, I guess, fan servicey than I remember it being. I'm trying to look. Because it was English dubbed, so English and Japanese stereo, so it's still there. All 26 episodes. Looks like 7 isn't enough anymore. 7 is the luckiest number. A lot of tagline sort of stuff there. Interesting. So an interesting thing about this is it is Media Blasters. If the name sounds familiar, that's Anime Works. But they're not releasing this under the Anime Works title. I think they've, you know, put that aside and they're like, no. We just got 7 of 7. I guess this isn't quite SD on Blu-ray, is it? I was mostly thinking if it was SD on Blu-ray, it could fit on one disc. And if I remember right, 7 of 7 was created during that time frame where it doesn't make sense to try too hard at upscaling. So maybe this is, you know, kind of one of those in-between things. To Love Through Darkness, Complete Collection. This one has a new English dubbed... Well, this is the new English dubbed edition, according to the thing. Has other stuff been being released dubbed? I don't remember. I think the big problem I keep having with trying to watch To Love Through is they mostly had season releases, but there was a couple of OVAs that came in between seasons 1 and 2 that introduced characters that were present in season 2. Was this season 2 or was this season 3? Oh, it says right there, season 3. All new English dub, Sisterly Loves, Splitting Harems and Heavenly Bodies of Doom. Oh well. There we can see it says English dub as expected, region A. Kind of expected. It's not like Sentai tends to go dual uncommonly so, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, they're usually not worried about releasing overseas, whereas Funimation has branches both here and in Europe, so yeah, that makes sense. And even though it's called To Love Through Darkness, you know, I thought her name was Golden Darkness, but I don't know if I'm remembering correctly. Or is that a different person? That was Golden Darkness? I don't know. My memory is kind of vague. And then, last but not least, we have World Trigger, the complete collection. Season 1. Which is definitely curious looking. The portal is open, the aliens are here, and only one force can stop them. Interesting. It looks like this is kind of reminiscent of some old school kind of releases where even though there's one thin thing, there's two little things on the inside. Right? This is very flippity floppity. English, Japanese. That is English audio version, Japanese audio version. Why the fuck is that the case? That is... Jesus Christ. 73 episodes? Okay, so something tells me that this probably either got edited or there's enough of a difference between the English and the Japanese releases that this is getting to. But holy shit, that's a lot of plastic and discs. I'm officially completely boggled. I'm also, unless these are very short episodes, which they're probably not because they're dividing them across 9 discs. What? Okay, so there's 73 episodes across 7 discs for the English version, and for the Japanese version, there's 73 across 9 discs. What's going on here? That looks like 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 10. So that's 8 times 6, which is 48, plus 10, which is 50. Did the English version skip episodes? Okay, that's 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, 25 through 32, 33 through 40, 41 through 48, and then disc 7 just jumps to episode... Am I reading that right? Is that 64? Because here, disc 6 goes to 48, but then we got another 8, then 9, and then 8. Which is consistent. 72 would be 9 times 8, plus 1 would be that, so the extra 1 episode is here. This means there were entire seasons? Not? What the fuck? And, you know, that's interesting because, you know, Jesus, there's a lot of discs, of course. Because, of course, and I guess I really appreciate this release. This is just mind-boggling because usually you run into interesting sense of anime, and leaving out an entire legion of episodes like that is weird. But I guess this is my finding out about it, and I really appreciate who releases. I really do appreciate Sentai being thorough like that. That's actually pretty damn cool. Here's this week's anime DVD collection update.
Alright, so I guess there's a lot of anime watching to talk about this week. Yeah, it's kind of weird how I'll go for long periods of time without watching a lot of stuff, and then I will watch stuff in bursts. Let's begin with, before I start with, you know, stuff that I have physically, I'm pretty sure I watched and talked about Seton Academy last week. If I didn't, call me out on it, but I'm pretty sure I had watched all of it and commented on it. But continuing on the Crunchyroll stuff, you know, I don't try to watch a whole lot of stuff from there because I have so many unwatched Blu-rays and DVDs that it's better if I look for stuff among that. But, you know, I was watching So I'm a Spider, So What? So I'm a Spider, you know that. And I did mention that, you know, it seemed to be that there was one more episode remaining in the current season, and I was at a place where I wasn't quite sure if they were going to try and tie the two stories together or not. And part of the reason I had been thinking that is because it could have meant that Season 2 would be the end of the anime. And it didn't seem to be. And I mean, like, it felt like they could have done something to maybe suddenly bring it to a sudden conclusion, which kind of makes all stories kind of lead to the same destination sort of thing. And they didn't quite do that, but they did do enough of that the foreshadowing of thinking that it would do that was definitely the right mindset to be in at that time. But they definitely didn't finish things, because I don't know how much I want to say about it, because it's very spoiler, but I was thinking that it was most likely there was going to be an additional season, or if it never shows up in anime form, then it would be an additional story that would continue in the manga, and the anime would just end at season 2, with everybody wishing for season 3, sort of like a billion other things out there that are good that people are like, yeah, we want more. And usually that more does exist, but it is in the manga or the light novel or whatever. And so Soma Spider seems to be there. It was a interesting season finale episode, I guess. And there's some things about it that I kind of still have mixed feelings on. But for the most part, I can't really talk about those because those are way too spoiler. And I could just say that I hope there's an additional season that comes out. Because it feels like if they went one more season, maybe this is something that is going to resolve itself. And it still has a chance to potentially fix some of the things that I would say have me feeling a little unsure. So, that's that. It's kind of weird to talk so much about a single episode, but, normally I do something like what I do with One Piece, and that's burst sessions. I forget what they call those. I was thinking about it like a minute ago, but I forgot the word. But when you're watching everything all at once, so of course, like I said, my Friday friend highly values. It is recording. I did remember to start recording. Okay, yeah. Sorry about disturbing that, but yeah, my Friday friend does value watching it. It's not that I would say that any moment in particular is good, so much as other than maybe some feelings of wariness, it does feel like One Piece is building on stuff. Like, one thing that's really nice is it has actually made a lot of nodbacks to historical previous episode story arcs. It felt like maybe it was a little one-dimensional with some of that stuff, but no, it's a little more multifaceted. It feels like things build up, grow out, and are more interesting as it goes, which is what One Piece tends to do. It introduces something, you're kind of wondering, is this good or not? It's different, but it's weird, so I don't know. But as it goes, it gets more interesting, and I would say that the stuff going on here, it falls under that category. I do feel like it is doing some things that kind of slow things down a little bit, which maybe One Piece has been doing the whole time, and it doesn't feel as bad as when they were fighting CP9? CP5? The men in suits on the train. Like, that one felt so shonen battle anime drawn out sort of things that it kind of felt weary. This one, some of the weariness comes more from just it feels like you get more people's opinions on events that are currently happening than you really care about, per se. A lot of reactions, little things like, oh, I don't really, Frankie breaks down crying, and it's like, it's silly in a One Piece way, but at the same time, it, drew out enough time that it's just like, huh. And then there's the Bartholomew. I don't think that's his actual name, but it's something really close to that. Like, there was this entire thing that was just, it felt like it was delaying time and wasting time, sort of. And I say sort of because at some level it's also kind of a little endearing, but it's really weird because it does feel like the time is not moving as fast as I would kind of prefer it for the events that are unfolding. And I think that's pretty standard for One Piece. But, of course, whether or not this would be a top tier, okay, I definitely really enjoyed this sort of, I guess, story arc, is yet to come. Because right now it is definitely, I think my friend and I are both in agreement that certain story arcs were definitely good. And they're the ones that kind of got us, you know, I say us like I might not, and there's a possibility I might not be keeping up with One Piece if I didn't have him to help me, you know, determine when to watch it and keep up on it. But, you know, he got into things because of certain story arcs, and that's why he values it so much, because there was some real compelling storytelling going on there. And like I said, one of the interesting things about One Piece is it feels like it goes a step above world building, which is kind of weird because world building is a pretty big thing, but you would think, oh, does he mean universe building? But I don't know. It's something a little bit different where you feel like there's different levels of story. And maybe I've talked about like 2001: A Space Odyssey, the movie, and how it's kind of interesting how there's 3 stories going on in there. Where if you kind of follow the setup, point of conflict resolution model, you can kind of see there's a story arc involving prehistoric man, a story arc involving modern man, you know, slightly futuristic man, and then a story arc that seems to encompass the whole movie that uses those other stories as moving parts as kind of a story about humanity, which is kind of one of the interesting things that makes 2001, I think, still feel really great for people. And I guess so far well, I wouldn't say that the thing about world building that One Piece does is necessarily at a 2001 level, because 2001, I think one of the stated goals of somebody working on it might have been Stanley Kubrick, but it might not have been him, so take this with a huge grain of salt and just know that somebody possibly claimed this, but yeah. I mean, I would be playing a game of telephone. So it's my understanding that 2001, you watch the main human go through an evolution, and the goal of the movie was to also have the audience kind of go through that evolution as well, at some degree. So in that regard, 2001 is kind of philosophically potentially way up there, and One Piece isn't quite like that, but it is one of those things where it's just like you can kind of feel that there's a level above the normal storytelling that's going on, that's even above the storytelling that's above that storytelling, and you know, it's really nice. And the other thing I've been watching is Sword Art Online Elysiazation War of Underworld, which would be the second season of Elysiazation, and I've been suffering a little through it. And usually the important takeaway for something like that is to understand why I don't particularly like it and why that may or may not be relevant to other people who might want to watch it. Especially since when I was looking at the ratings, it's rated better than some of the other Sword Art Online stuff that I thought was more digestible. Which kind of goes hand in hand with, I think the main disconnect I might have with a lot of other people is there's a lot of flashy things going on in this show, and I don't really care about flashy. The flashy is really great. There's no doubt about it. Not Saber is really cool, and the effects when she does stuff is really cool and all that stuff. And she's not the only person that's really cool. In fact, I keep wondering if maybe Type Moon did this, because, you know, it looks like a Fate Stay Night release. I never checked that for the first one, but then again, this one's doing things that just feel so Type Moon. I don't know what I said about who did it. I meant Type Moon if I said something else. But, you know, Type Moon is known for Fate Stay Night, etc., etc. This Blu-ray set began with a recap of the first season, and it just kind of reintroduced everything I really didn't like about the first season. And some of those are that it didn't feel like things made sense from a storytelling perspective. It felt like they set up conflicting ideas, and it tries some things that feel like they're supposed to sound smart, but they don't seem to be all that well thought out. Lots of good, convenient timing. I'm noticing that in this one, and I'm pretty sure it was there to some degree in the first one. Yeah, probably not as much as in this one. Sets up for stuff that don't make sense. Like, I'm trying to remember everything I wanted to talk about, but it's just sits so wrong to me on so many levels. It's obviously not so bad that I can't not continue watching it. I kind of want to because I'm kind of curious where they're going with all this dumb shit, for lack of better words. And I just don't necessarily enjoy it as I go along, per se. I feel like there's things that they've missed, things that they have. So, let's say you watched the first season and you enjoyed it. So, some of the things that might have been enjoyable about the first season are completely lacking here. So this is definitely not the sort of thing that you enjoy because of the elements from the first season that you necessarily enjoyed. You might enjoy it because of other elements. But I think a good example is the first one kind of tries to establish this thing where it's like, well, we conveniently have the ability to make the main character forget his memory so he can be inserted into a world, so he can have a childhood there where he grows up with the characters and then wakes up and doesn't remember that. And then the thing happens, and they have to put him back in there. And it's contrived, especially since it kind of felt like the story it was telling in the first season was intended to be for the characters in that virtual world. But somehow our main character just kind of ended up being shoehorned in. And this might make sense if the original games just never had any original Sword Art Online characters in it at all. Or maybe they showed up later on for some reason, then that would make a lot of sense. Because then it means that the anime was trying to introduce that because those are the characters people like and want to follow, but then some of the events wouldn't make sense then. And the problem with this one is, while it ended at a good cliffhanger sort of moment, their explanation for what happened after that is, quite frankly, a bullshit made-up excuse. Where I've complained before that there's anime I just don't like. Kashimashi, I think, was one that was recently on one of my, the Blu-ray version came out, and I point out I never liked that show because it kind of had this bullshit fake illness thing that causes the characters to say, oh, well, I guess we have to do these things against our interests because we have to cater to this. And I complained before about Please Teacher kind of doing that as well. This one isn't introducing a fake medical, but it is coming up with an explanation on top of a already highly questionable explanation on top of an already highly questionable explanation that basically also comes up with what sounds like, again, complete bullshit. And it all exists for the purpose of making sure Kirito isn't there to speed the story along, I guess. Meanwhile, they're advancing in other things, they're making assertions. Some of them are kind of interesting, but others are just like, they just pulled this out of nowhere. It's cool, but like, one character just suddenly said, oh, you've actually leveled up and you can do something really quite cool now. And it's just like, it doesn't feel like it evolved naturally into that. There's things that the good guys have conveniently forgotten, which allow the bad guys to do some things. There's some things the bad guys are doing which don't make sense given the time constraints the bad guys were in and possible hardware limitations. They try to convince them, they try to talk their way around it, but it feels like there are things being made up as it goes that just don't make sense. And it's just trying to, I guess, surprise us as it goes. And it's unfortunate because this also introduces moments where you're like, oh, well, I guess I was kind of curious what would happen if this happened. But then it kind of cuts it short. like certain characters who are going to talk about past events. It's like these are characters who we kind of want to know how they react to these possible past events because they've all gotten them from completely different perspectives, but it's not showing us from their perspectives. And I guess what it really comes down to is my main problem is it just seems to be throwing shit in there for the sake of throwing shit in there. And this is definitely really relevant. I think a really good example is they decided that we need to be really disgusted with the bad guys. And this is a problem that Sword Art Online keeps having, that it sometimes handles better than others. So in the very first story, the Sword Art Online story arc, you had these disgusting characters in there, but they made a lot of sense because, the original story that birthed this entire franchise was about people who were stuck in a virtual game where, if you're like me, then you're like, oh yeah, maybe I'll be one of those few people who never dies in Breath of the Wild. 100 dies later, maybe I'm going to be convinced that, I'm definitely not going to be any better. It doesn't matter how careful I am. Eventually some Stone Thanos, I forgot what they're called, will punch me when I wasn't expecting it, and, I'll find, oh, well, there goes all my hearts. And, so video games, one of the things that can be kind of fun about them is, even if they're kind of casual, for lack of better terms, I don't think casual is quite the right word, there's still this, but you could still die, and it's just something that'll happen every once in a while, and the game shouldn't punish you for it. Fuck you, Link's Awakening. And so Sword Art Online is just sort of, really, it works out, the original story arc works out, because on top of that, you have these people that are playing something where, in theory, it is easy to die. It's easy to die in real life, but in the game, even though you're super powered, it's easy to die. And it does things to people. And it could have actually been even better if it was more focused on some of that stuff there and, kind of revealed more things. Like a guy who, it revealed people who kind of stayed behind because, if they don't keep advancing forward, then they don't encounter the dangerous things that will prevent them from continuing to stay alive, basically. And, they could have introduced characters and said, these are certain mindsets of people that kind of fell into that trap. And you wouldn't necessarily be saying that people would do that if they were that mindset, but that people can fall into that trap, right? And the point I'm trying to get to is there were disgusting people there. And it made sense because that was kind of how they dealt with the stress of the situation. Which is to say they dealt with it poorly, but it made sense. But then once they get outside of that, then they're like, well, Sword Art Online just keeps introducing people that are disgusting, and you're like, but there isn't a need for this person to be disgusting other than the show just trying to cheaply manipulate our emotions. And when I feel that cheap manipulation, I kind of react to the show itself in disgust and not the character in disgust. So it really draws me out, which could explain why I might have enjoyed Sword Art Online 2, the beginning of it, a bit, because what they did was they kind of played on an extension of what had happened before. And I know this is trying to do the same thing, but this one's just going way too far. It's just like a little too in your face. Sword Art Online 2 kept things a little in reserve, and I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say it was the smartest thing ever, per se. A lot of people might disagree, but it was one of those things where it's just like, a lot of that stuff made sense. Whereas this one, again, they tried to say that Kirito has a lot of battle experience, and they came up with something that sort of pseudo-works, but it ignores the fact that this world has been simulated for 800 years. There's been people that have been alive longer than he has, and they've been fighting longer than he has, and they've got cheat codes longer than he has, and weird things like that. And they have to come up with this kind of sort of, oh, well, everybody else couldn't kill, so they don't know how to fight without... Except it doesn't actually seem to be that way, and doesn't actually seem to make sense, so it seems to be more of an excuse. I'm probably going off on another tangent, am I? Because overall, the franchise is weird. And I wouldn't say that Sword Art Online 2 is necessarily great, only that at least the first story arc that it went over, it felt smoother than the stuff that came before and the stuff that came after it, other than, you know, the original story arc that took this all off. Very weird stuff. And again, my motivation for wanting to continue watching this is that I am curious where it goes. I just keep running into this position of I'm almost looking for excuses to do other stuff as I go along. And it's not like I watch something and it's so horrible that it's a bad episode. It's just I keep face-palming so much. And you know, a lot of that could just be me. Especially since, you know, there's also a lot of people who don't really like Sword Art Online in general. And like I said, that first story arc, I thought it was pretty great. It's really hard to tell if other people think the same thing, because, you know, there's multiple story arcs that are kind of contained together in one thing, and the second story arc was definitely shit. And there were probably people who still like that as well, because the rating is, you know, maybe comparable to this, I guess. Which is to say, it's not like it's rated so well that and everybody's got to watch it, but it is rated high enough that this is definitely somebody's favorite show. And I will probably not understand that person, because, you know, I can't overlook the flaws with it. I mean, I'm probably going to watch this with my Friday friend, because, you know, he watched the first season, and I'm like, why am I torturing myself watching this when I'm going to watch it a second time? I should find something that I can do so I can multitask while we're watching this. It'll be rewatch for me, and I won't be getting anything out of it, I think. And maybe I will. Maybe somebody will comment. You might have noticed that I've made a couple more comments than usual in some of my comment sections. Nothing that I would say is notably good, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing to myself, because apparently it's all weird. But, you know, it's been a weird week. I spent the weekend, like, feeling half asleep the entire weekend. And today, I think I'm just too exhausted to feel half asleep. And I have to wake up early tomorrow again as well. Which basically means this video should be uploaded at normal time, because I'm not waking up early in order to do anything. I'm waking up early in order to watch stuff that's going on with the company. It's kind of a presentation of side projects that people have been doing, for lack of better terms. And it's really cool, and I wish I could pay attention to all of it, but, you know, some other meetings still want to happen despite that stuff, and it's whatever. For personal stuff, I did reach a point in Monster Hunter Rise where I'm like, I at least wanted to make it this far. Which is to say that I now have 90% of the awards. Awards in Monster Hunter are basically like achievements. And 90% means I've got 45 out of 50. By my estimate, I could probably get 48 out of 50. But the truth of the matter is, I haven't looked into the arena quests just yet. I just assume that there's some arena quests which don't have longsword as an option, and when you have a card which has 500 longsword usages and nothing else, you're just like, well, might as well keep going. And that kind of makes it hard to do arena quests that don't have longsword. So, probably can't do all the arena quests, so I can't get the award for doing that. And if I can't get the award for doing that, I also can't get the award for getting all the other rewards. Which pretty much leaves the 3 remaining, which are slay a total of 1,000 large monsters, get all the small gold crowns, and get all the large gold crowns. Which are basically just fighting a hell of a lot of monsters. I mean, even right now, I'm only somewhere over 600 with the 300 plus hours I put into the game. Not that I've been particularly quick or trying to get those numbers up real fast. I probably could get those numbers up kind of quick by just grinding on some low-level nobodies in, like, an arena or something like that. Yeah, you just fight 3 of them and they go bam, bam, bam. There's 3 down. Just do that 100 times and then bam, I've got 300. But no. Instead, the place I stopped at was, I finally got all the trinkets. That would be all of the stuff that you can win from the lottery, and you know, and I really don't like the lottery, so I'm glad that part's over with. And the part where you get all the wall scrolls, and you only get the wall scrolls in the game by fighting a monster 10 times to unlock its wall scroll, and then there's a couple of other that unlock because of just general story progression. So I got that one. I got the one where I needed to level up all support types to level 50, which I think is specifically all the different Palico types, but if it includes Palamutes, well, I had a Palamute at level 50 way before anything else, just because, you know, I've been taking that dog with me everywhere. Everywhere. And, you know, I got both of those awards over the weekend, and that, again, pretty much solidifies, that's where I thought I would at least get to, because the other ones I might be able to do because, you know, it's still fun to play the game. But it's not as engaging per se, and, you know, with my general exhaustion, going to sleep would be nice. It'd be nice to see my friends on VR chat more. I'm not even going on VR chat tonight because I'm recording this. Tomorrow it's going to be video gaming with my brother, but maybe afterwards I hop on VR chat. I don't know. I don't know. But, you know, I've enjoyed Monster Hunter Rise up to this point. I'm definitely curious to see what more they do. Hopefully I haven't burned myself out so that if they do introduce more stuff, I could just hop on and do them. But I might not go for these other remaining rewards just because they're not as needed. But hopefully this means that, you know, my brother and his peer group that are still trying to complete the story mode, hopefully they stake at it so that we can complete the story mode. I don't think any of y'all have been watching my stream, and that's okay. That's what we've been trying to push for, and we're teetering on the edge, but we're just trying to make sure everybody that we want to do that with are kind of there together. So, you know, we kind of got to balance it between they start later and later because, you know, they get home, they eat and all that stuff, and, you know, they don't necessarily feel well enough to go late into the evening, which is good for me because I shouldn't be staying up to ungodly hours of the morning when I got work the next day. But stuff, yeah, it's all stuff. Strange and interesting stuff. Yeah, and it's really quite unfortunate about the anime stuff because I do still have some Railgun. I just have to get through Index Season 3, which means I have to dig that out and figure that all out. And sometimes I'm pretty lazy about my selection of what anime I'm going to watch. Alright, there you go. Y'all have had me ranting for I don't know how long now. So I guess it's going to be a long video, but fortunately I'll start processing it really early tomorrow morning. Yeah. Y'all, have a nice week.